Hello, Kate. Welcome. Up the chat. I'm just setting up the chat and then we're gonna get started. How are you? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I was helping my mom earlier to take care of some of her business. That's it. Nothing too crazy. And oh, I forgot I had to do it like that. And we're gonna start in a second. My favorite drink. I like water. Uh, Water is like the best drink. What was I gonna do? Where is it? Also, chat. And what about yours? Oh, here you go. We're gonna get started in 1 second, guys. Sorry. So today we're gonna talk about about gang stalking and sensitation. If you do not know what gang stalking is, let me explain it to you. Gang stalking is when a bunch of narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths decide to impact someone's life negatively via manipulation, and all of these tricks in gang stalking take a much more sinister approach. And hang on. Now, when we're talking about gang stalking, I'm not, if you, do you know what gang stalking is? If you guys know what gang stalking is, then just let me reiterate because if you guys haven't been here before, you probably do not know what gang stalking is. So, gang stalking is when a bunch of psychopaths, sociopaths conglomerate together in order to destroy someone. This type of harassment is is known to drive people crazy. It 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 makes people it produces in people paranoid schizophrenia, but not a paranoid schizophrenia that comes from the person being themselves, but gang stalking itself is a way of producing paranoid schizophrenia into a person's mind. Gang stalking produces paranoid delusions, and one of the methods that this is done is by having these gang stalkers sensitize an individual. I'm gonna tell you how. Look, let's first talk about what sensitization is. All right, sensitization, and it's here. Sensitization is a process of an organism becoming increasingly sensitive or responsive responsive. Pay attention to that. To a stimulus after repeated exposure. This can manifest in different fields, such as a person becoming more allergic to a substance over time, a nervous system becoming hypersensitive to a stress, or a synapse in the spinal cord amplifying pain signals. For this content, we're going to cover stress sensitization and, and psychological sensitization. So stress sensitization is the following. Prolonged stress can lead to an amplified and lasting change in the body's stress response. This can increase vulnerability to psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia, as repeated stress can heighten the brain's response to stimuli. So, hola circulando, ¿cómo estás? So look, psychological sensitization. I know I spelled wrong. Oh, I spelled it really wrong. Hang on. Sensitization. And look, sensitization refers to a process in psychology where repeated exposure to a stimulus leads to an increase in sensitivity or responsiveness to that stimulus over time. It's a form of non-associative learning, meaning it does not involve the formation of associations between stimuli. So let me explain this to you. In gang stalking, gang victims of gang stalking are sensitized to headlights. If you read headlights, you see that's the first thing that people talk about is sensitization to headlights. And look, gang stalking, what it does is that it ties in a negative sensation, confusion to headlights. How is this done? Um, it's done simply by using the headlight to produce fear, to produce discomfort on the target. For example, if you are driving and there's a car with their headlights on behind you, pointed at your rearview mirrors, and and you try to drive it off while the person is still following you, and this happens over a prolonged period of time, this is going to result in discomfort, in nervousness. Your mind will probably be racing. Why was that person doing that to me? What an a-hole. I don't know that person. But imagine that same scenario happening to you many, many, many times over a couple of years. Over time, your nervous system will associate discomfort, uneasiness with the mere sight of headlights. Then, if the victim is stressed enough, there will be a point where the subconscious mind of the target will accept the headlight as equivalent to discomfort. And if you're being gang stalked, right? You know that there's a group around you, and you look on gang stalking and you read about the headlights. You're going to be confused because there's headlights everywhere, which means that it's going to be impossible or almost impossible for you to discern whether or not someone's headlights are part of gang stalking harassment. I'm telling you this out of personal experience because there was a point where I was driving and it was the daylight and all of the cars had the headlights on. And guess how I felt? I felt as if every single car was a card of a gang stalker. I'd never said anything, but it definitely felt like it. So that is sensitization. So for the moment, hang on, for many years, people were making me uncomfortable with the headlights, to the point where headlights became synonymous with harassment. And over time, this illusion began building. This illusion took, it took like 5 years to build, like 5 years. And if you do not know what this is supposed to do, you are gonna be sensitized to these things. So in gang stalking, you're gonna be sensitized to colors, to words, and the colors and the words. I mean, the words are pretty much extracted from you by having a person say random words, and when the word clicks, well, and someone will look for a negative reaction from you to the words. That's how gang stalking works. It's a game where you have a bunch of people trying to say a word, that will get a negative reaction from you. And once they get it, they're gonna keep using this word. And next thing you know is that every time that you hear this word, you are gonna associate this word with a bad experience. Let me come with a good better example. So during my gang stalking operation, um, a lot of gang stalkers actually knew that I had on my toe I had a fungus, one of my toenails, and for the longest time, gang stalkers were like, foot. I'm not kidding. It's not an exaggeration. But at the time, I was very sensitive to this. So, so to me, someone's you saying the word foot, it meant that they knew about my foot, and I was very, very. I had a lot of shame for. I felt shame because I've never had that before. So, it actually had a negative psychological impact for many years. But then I got over it. But before I got over it, anytime someone would say the word foot, it triggered something really weird in my mind, where it triggered feelings of shame. It triggered images in my mind of my foot at its worst point. And and this is the thing, is that when you're being sensitized, you're being conditioned to associate that word with a negative experience. So every time I heard the word foot, or someone said the word foot, or just moved their foot like this in front of me, I remembered my own, and it made me uncomfortable. Good morning. What do you mean good morning? Hey, 007. So what happened was that all I have to do is to cut off the association, because in the end I realized these people do not really know what my feet look like. Why am I so sensitive to it? And I was like, well, sensitization. So I forced my mind to think of other things, and the sensitization went away. So look, let's look at a little bit of sensitization and colors. Let's see what we can find on YouTube. Let's see, maybe we can find something a little helpful. Um, YouTube colors. Let's see what we find. Uh, and then I want to look at the psychology of colors. Like, this is not art. We're not in an art class. And let's see. Harry, let's see. Sensitization, psychology. Um, let's see what we find. Mm. Let's see. Why does this only have 37 views? Let's see this.
What is sensitization? Have you ever noticed how some experiences can make you more sensitive over time? This phenomenon is known as sensitization, and it plays a fascinating role in our understanding of non-associative learning. So, what exactly is sensitization? Sensitization occurs when repeated exposure to a stimulus leads to an increased response to that same stimulus. Unlike habituation, where the response lessens with time, sensitization makes you more reactive. For instance, if you hear a loud noise that startles you, each time you hear it again, you may feel even more anxious or fearful. This heightened sensitivity can manifest in various ways, including emotional, cognitive, or physiological responses. Imagine someone who has experienced a traumatic event. Each reminder of that event may trigger stronger feelings of distress or anxiety.
So that's the thing, is that that's it. So it's a traumatic experience, and we're reminded of the event. So, for example, in gang stalking, you experience some, you just have negative experiences, right? And they are, and the people themselves, the facial expressions and the words remind you of those traumatic experiences. So you are psychologically stuck thinking of these traumatic experiences whenever um, these items or things that remind you of that experience. For example, the headlight. So because you were harassed, because you had so many traumatic experiences that were tied to headlights, next thing you know, every time you see a headlight, you are gonna relive in your mind those traumatic experiences. I hope that makes sense.
This is sensitization in action. From a neurological perspective, sensitization involves changes in the nervous system. These changes can include synaptic strengthening, which enhances communication between neurons. As a result,
So that that will lead to an automatic response of stress whenever you see a headlight, and over time it becomes more streamlined. And but you have to undo this because otherwise it's gonna stay in your nervous system forever, especially if you have been gang stalked for a really long time. What you have to do if you are gang stalked and you are experiencing these things, what you have to do is literally think of something whenever you see any of these sensitive things that you were sensitized to. For example, if you were sensitized to the headlights, every time you, every time you see a headlight, you have to think of something else. So that you change it. Look, in my experience, whenever I would see a car with the headlights on, it was an automatic response for me to think, "Oh, that's a gang stalker. Oh, that car has the headlights on." And over time, that thought became super automatic, and it was it was only automatic because I did it so many times that my nervous system cut my consciousness off of that thought. So to my mind, headlight equaled gangstalker because that was the truth for so many years. But then something happened where over time my mind separated separated from my consciousness. This is going to sound weird, but my mind, so many things, how do you say it? My mind got used to having a certain thought with a certain cue, with so many cues, that my mind was practically running almost out of cues and visual things. Like if I would see a headlight, my mind would tell me that's a gang stalker. If I would see a bottle, oh, a gang stalker, put it there. You know, if something was off, it was like, there must be a gang stalker. But like my mind was all of those neurological responses were automatic. When I noticed the automatic responses, it was only then that I had to rewrite all of those. So all of these things that I was sensitized to were invisible to me because I didn't know how the mind worked. I had no idea. So I had to start using my mind because I wasn't using my mind. My mind was being controlled by the gang stalkers, and it was a mind control that is analog. You can control someone's mind. It's a form of manipulation. So what you have to do is that whenever you see things such as the headlights, this is an example, and you think, oh, that's a gang stalker, you have to retrain your mind to not have that thought whenever you see a headlight. So the best thing you can do is you sit by whatever it is that is causing you that what is reminding you of that traumatic response, what is creating the feel of shame, that one thing, like to me was like the word foot, or it was like a headlight. So what I did is that I literally went on my phone and began looking at cars with the headlights on. And I said, that's just the car with the headlights on. That's just the car with the headlights on. That's just a... And I did that for many hours. I repeated to myself those words, and then those words lost their meaning. And then all of the things that gang stalkers would do, I retrained my mind to think of something else. And the more I did that, the more I learned how to really control my thoughts, control my perceptions, control my what the traumatic experiences will control what I would think of in in the presence of what used to be a trigger. And all of a sudden, the triggers were not triggering anymore. I was free. But these you have to understand how the sensitization works. And once I began to see through the twisted perceptions, I snapped out of the gang stalking narrative. It was only then that I was able to see behind the veil. Gang stalking literally keeps you stuck in a special mindset. And unless you see it, unless you understand it, you are not going to be able to escape it. Like it's a state of mind that gang stalking puts you in. And on top of that, the thing that you have to understand is that like if you know that you're being gang stalked, you have to disassociate with anyone that even vaguely mentions any illicit substances because it is highly likely that those people are gang stalkers too, trying to make it easier on themselves to put you in that state of mind. So you gotta confront the headlights. Yeah, if I always see broken headlights, it doesn't broken headlights. It's it means nothing. Look, people talk about a single headlight or the double headlights or the broken headlight. It feels like that. It feels like that, but it has nothing to do with gang stalking. Look, after after a while where you're being gang stalked, you're gonna start seeing things. And by seeing things, I mean that you're gonna start doing research, your own research. And this research, you're gonna hear stories about oh, gang stalkers have a single headlight, and guess what? Because you know gang stalking is real, and you read online, gang stalkers have a single headlight. Whenever you see single headlight, you're gonna automatically assume that that's true. Look, because look, gang single headlights don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. You put that yourself. Look, if you put headlights, you're gonna see this a lot. Single headlight, single head, single headlight gang stalking. Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Single headlight gang stalking. Uh, Kuora. Look. Uh, uh, Hang on. One headlight, which is the matrix. Look, here we go. See, so like it's normal when you see these things because when you're getting gang stalked, you get these weird sensations, and you read stories about a single headlight or something. Let's see.
Organized gang stalking is a harassment and discrediting campaign waged against a targeted individual. Coordinated psychological warfare
There you go.
attacks consisting of
So it's just the headlight. It's just a single headlight, and that's the thing is that when you're gang stalked, things are gonna have an ominous feeling. Like it's weird, but like when you are in a state of mind, you feel like everything is part of gang stalking, and you have this weird ominous feeling. I know it doesn't mean anything, just the car up front usually have a broken tail light. Oh, so many cars have broken tail lights, but it doesn't mean anything.
stalkings, noise campaigns, sensitizing to psychological tactics such as
So
having the target being surrounded by vehicles with only one working headlight, and the spreading of lies and rumors are executed in an effort to neutralize and mentally damage the target. A targeted individual is considered an undesirable by the cult. This cult
notice how it's
backed by the state and society. Slander and rumors
ah
about the target are spread by agents who reside in the target's
okay. There we go. Notice how the broken headlight has nothing to do with anything. It's like this is the thing. When you're gang stalked, what you read online, your mind starts accepting it as truth. So when you're getting gang stalked, something happens to your mind where it can be manipulated. People can put things inside of your head. I'm not exaggerating. I'm telling you this because I lived it. People will have an ease to make you do things. It will be easier for people to make you believe things. And look, if you're looking for online things, and you start seeing cars with a single headlight or gang stalkers, then you go outside and someone has been bugging you with their headlights. You're gonna assume, oh my god, dude, it's a gang stalker. So now you're gonna make the automatic assumption that anyone with the headlights on is a gang stalker. This applies to everything. They need to keep their vehicles better, for real. Well, they don't work as a team. They work as a team in gang stalking, but there's no financial ties in between them.
community. The target will shortly find themselves to be a scapegoat for the cult, an MK Ultra subject victimized to psychological torture. They will be harassed and monitored by the Neighborhood Watch, paid
When you're gang,
perpetrators, ex convicts, the Freemasonic lodges, and churches, satanic or religious,
When you're gang
as
stalked,
well as government
everything will have an ominous feeling. Like everything will feel evil. Things will feel evil. Even your own thoughts. Like there's gonna be a point where your own thoughts feel evil. That's why people start antagonizing their own mind.
and law enforcement agencies who will be coordinating the psychological torture and synchronization
Like
via AI technology.
when you are paranoid, everything feels evil. I hope that makes sense. When you're paranoid and you don't know, you're all confused. You're not gonna know what you don't. If you don't understand gang stalking, you're gonna be confused with all of these things.
Sensitization techniques are used to condition the target psychologically in order to let them know that they are being watched.
Like for example, the headlights. Gang stalkers will not try to sensitize you to a headlight on. Why? Because headlights on. I mean, one headlight on can lead to tickets, to ticket traffic. So it's not.
And to ultimately have them either commit suicide, have a mental breakdown, or more. In my case, the cult surrounds me by one headlight vehicles almost every minute of the day, hazard lights and open car doors every few blocks, fake coughing by storm
Like that's that's called normal. You know what I mean?
employees and passersby. It's a type of ruthless, organized harassment based in abuse for trauma based infliction. Also, behavior and belief modification and control through synthetic hypnosis,
Like what does even synthetic hypnosis mean? You know what I mean? Like like what the hell, dude?
psychological projection, and reverse psychology with focus on the target's subconscious. In order for this
Like it, there is a mixture of so many things in this video.
to work on a larger scale, a target is exposed to perpetrating
Okay, so that's the one thing about sensitization is that there's going to be a point where you're so confused about everything, so you automatically start going to make the assumption that everything that makes you uncomfortable, anything negative that happens, is part of your gang stalking operation. So how to undo sensitization? And look, this is the one thing that if you are a victim of gang stalking, that you have to do. First is that you have to be aware of of what gang stalkers are doing. You have to understand what gang stalkers are doing. They are sensitizing you to words, to visual cues. They are messing with your beliefs by acting out the belief in front of you until your subconscious mind accepts it as truth. Yeah. So desensitization is a psychology term related to a treatment or process that diminishes emotional responsiveness to a negative or aversive stimulus or repeated exposure. This process typically occurs when an emotional response is repeatedly triggered, but the action tendency associated with the emotion proves irrelevant or unnecessary. It's like when gang stalkers would say the word um, charge or something. And for a time, it would have this negative connotation. I would have this negative connotation from that word. But after a time, I began to think of other things. Like I maintained my mind busy. I kept my mind thinking of funny things, while gang stalkers were doing these words like charged or screw or but when gang stalkers were trying to sensitize me to these words, I began to think of something funny. I began to use my imagination. I imagined my coworkers voguing or finger blasting their poolside. And guess what? It worked. I got rid of the sensitization, but it took practice. So, like here, so psychologists pioneered early desensitization techniques to help individuals unlearn or disassociate from phobias and anxieties. Her work laid the foundation and later structured approaches to desensitization therapy, aimed at gradually reducing emotional reactions to previously distressing situations. So, look, in my case, I got desensitized to gang stalking because I experienced it for so long, for so many years, that I got over it. It stopped having an impact. So I I just got over it, and it stopped being impactful. When that happened, I was able to keep no, I hang on. I began to keep my mind busy, which led the impact of gang stalking anything to lessen significantly. Significantly. That in itself took me to stop having those responses. But I only stopped having those responses because I understood what I didn't understand before, which is gang stalking is a game of sensitization. I realized that all of the responses that I was having to the stimuli, to the words, to the whole thing was was automatic. Was automatic because I was thinking of like of nothing. I was thinking of nothing, and my body was going haywire because I was my body was feeling all of the weird sensations because of the stimuli. But my mind, I was thinking of nothing. I was thinking of nothing. So like in the end, it was literally like almost a remote control. Gang stalking literally tied up the cues. I was sensitized to these things. So seeing these things, hearing these words caused an actual physiological response even when my mind even when I was not thinking about it. I was literally trained, like my body was trained. I was physiologically trained for these things, which is crazy. So the only way that I got out of it so fast was because I left that job. I left the job where I was being sensitized to these things. And look, it's the craziest thing, but like gang stalking is literally a game of sensitization. And you simply have to understand what's happening to you and you have to undo it. But to undo the sensitization, you have to understand that your body was sensitized. And when someone is trying to sensitize you, you have to, whenever you see the cues that are happening so often, you cannot have a reaction to the cue. And a reaction to a cue means like when you see a headlight and you think, oh, that's a gang stalker. That's the reaction, even when you didn't react. And by react, I mean you didn't say, oh my God, that's a gang stalker. But you had the thought, oh my God, that's a gang stalker. That's the reaction that you need to get rid of. Well, both the physiological and the physical. So whenever you see something that makes you think of gang stalker or why or anything of gang stalking, you have to cut off that reaction. Like if you see, I don't know, the color red, and you notice that gang stalkers are always wearing red, then think, okay, what can I replace the red with? The red. How can I make it not gang stalking related? Whenever you see red, you think I'm amazing or I'm so hot. So and you do that enough, the red is gonna trigger that to you have that thought. You will sensitize yourself to think that you're hot whenever you see the color red. That's exactly what gang stalkers do. Whenever you see a headlight, you think, oh, shine bright like a diamond whenever you see a headlight. And guess what? Next time you hear voices, whenever you see a headlight, your mind is gonna say, shine bright like a diamond whenever you see a freaking headlight. This is not a joke. This is not a trick. When gang stalkers say some type of word that they're trying to sensitize you, like I don't know, loser, why are you calling yourself loser? Why is that guy calling himself a loser? But you don't take it personally. You flip it over in your mind. That way your self image is intact. But you have to understand that gang stalking is all a game of desensitization. There was a time where I was broke as hell, and gang stalkers saw me looking for change in my car. So next thing I know, they were slamming a lot of change, like really loud. And then I thought, okay, that's a sign of money. Money is lucky. So I'm gonna imagine myself with a lot of money every time I hear change. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. I was just like hanging out, and then every time I heard coins clanking, I visualized like money signs. You know, the Conqueror's Bad Fur Day with the signs on the money with the money signs in the eyes. Hang on. Um, this one. So like I imagined this when I was being sensitized to coins, and guess what? Then I just forgot about it. But I desensitized myself from that experience. So whenever you have an experience that has to do with gang stalking, you simply have to replace that negative experience with a good experience of your own. So whenever gang stalkers would say foot, I remember the time where I was getting a pedicure with a friend, which was a really good time. So then the word foot stopped actually having a detrimental effect. But I have to retrain my mind to to use the cue words to remind me of good, amazing things. And over time, my mind began recollecting really amazing ideas until it became a habit. So after after a while, gang stalking sensitization wasn't causing me to have negative experiences, but it was helping me think of the good ones. Why? Because I actively used their sensitization tactics to my favor. That's how I snapped out of it. So I understood that gang stalking was all psychological programming. But guess what? The truth is that it's my mind, and I can reprogram it however I want. So they expect me to think of all of these awful experiences. That's what gang stalking is if you do not know gang stalking. But because the moment that I understood that I was being sensitized to think of negative experiences, to feel negative things, to remember negative experiences, whenever these people came on in my field of view, whenever I saw them, I actively changed the narrative. I thought I'm amazing when I saw a gang stalking grin. I thought I'm so hot whenever I saw a headlight. I thought the world conspires in my favor when I saw white. So I retrained my mind to think of things that I should be thinking whenever gang stalkers would do their sensitizing. And it worked. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm so happy most of the time. Because I understood that it was all sensitization. And look, I'm not gonna tell you to ignore it and be happy. No. So aside from having the full control of your mind, you have to understand the following. Gang stalking is illegal. Harassment is harassment regardless in what form or shape it appears. So if you're being harassed at work, if you have to report it, you have to record it. Look, one of the things that I wish I should have done. Yeah, double O, you can say that. You can say I'm hot as hell. Whenever you see, I don't know, a headlight. Like you can literally program your mind to anything you want. So what you do is that I wish I had done more is to put my phone in my front pocket and live stream everything that was happening at work. I wish I would have done that a lot. Like if I could go back in time, that's exactly what I would do all day, every day for the entire experience in gang stalking. That's exactly what I would have done every day, all the time. Because gang stalkers don't want you to be able to record anything. If you record a session of gang stalking harassment and you publicize it, you are gonna be the world's hero, like for real. So in gang stalking, you want to make sure to understand that documentation is your best friend. So, if you have to get yourself a pair of those Ray Bans with a camera, do so. That is gonna be it's gonna be super helpful. You can also hang on. Uh, you can also just put get shirts with front pockets and put your phone here and keep it here all the time, pointing out. You can also make sure to document anything that weird that happens. Um, Anything where you just make sure to document it. And if anyone is harassing you, you want to make sure to call HR. Call HR. Gang stalkers are going to tell you no one is going to believe you. But the truth is that even if it's a cough, even if it's a weird doing this to you with their phone, that's harassment. So you better report it because reporting it will discourage any type of harassment coming from these people. So you guys have to understand that. And look, so the reason that people say, "Oh my God, all of the gang stalkers all wear red. Gang stalkers all do this, all do," it's because you were sensitized at one point to have those ideas. So let's see what else. And let's keep watching this.
The organism becomes more responsive to the stimulus. Interestingly, this increased sensitivity can extend beyond the original stimulus to related stimuli, causing a broader range of reactions. Sensitization is different from classical conditioning, where a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a significant one. In sensitization,
So that's exactly what happened. So I think it was increases sensitivity. Increased sensitivity can extend to related stimuli resulting in broader reactions. I mean, it is related to an experience.
there is no need for multiple stimuli to create a learned response. It is simply an increase in reaction to a single repeated stimulus. Practical examples of sensitization are all around us. For instance, someone may develop heightened allergic reactions after repeated exposure to an allergen. Additionally, a person may feel growing annoyance from repeated loud noises.
Mm.
Understanding sensitization is important in psychology because it helps explain how certain behaviors or emotional states can escalate over time. This process occurs without the need for conscious.
That's one of the crazy things that happens in gang stalking is that you feel when your anger is rising. It feels like you feel like you're gonna snap. That's the craziest thing is that you feel like something is gonna snap. Like you literally feel like something is about to snap in your head. That is the one thing that it's really hard to actually explain. But I think it's the anxiety moving up. But you literally feel like something is about to snap in your head. Which is really crazy.
Learning or associations. It has real-world applications, especially in clinical settings. For example, sensitization can help explain the development of phobias, chronic pain conditions, and anxiety disorders. In these cases, repeated exposure to stressors or stimuli can intensify symptoms, making it harder for individuals to cope. In summary,
Okay, what? Explaining escalating behaviors and emotional states. But look, no one here talks to you about the thought patterns. No one tells you that in gang stalking, gang stalkers literally makes you have certain thoughts when you look at something, which is crazy.
Sensitization is a process that increases responsiveness to a stimulus through repeated exposure. It involves changes in the nervous system that amplify reactions and plays a significant role in learning and behavior within the framework of non-associative learning.
Okay, so let's see if there's anything else about it. So I hope that explained it. And let's see. Hang on. Let's see what else can we find about sensitization. Mm. Oh, what is this? Really commercial.
Round three. You're working on a project so huge, it'll take years to implement even.
Hey everyone! Today we're diving into all things nervous sensitization. You know that feeling when your body's buzzing and humming with electricity, your heart starts skipping beats, your breath decides to play hard to get, and your mind throws out bizarre, wild, and racing thoughts. It feels like your body and mind are out of control and starting to do weird and scary things for no apparent reason. Yeah, I've been there too, and I know it's a lot, but let's pull back the curtain and unpack what's really happening when there's just a little bit too much voltage in our systems. Our nervous system is like a very finely tuned electrical circuit, and when it's overloaded due to stress of any kind, it will start to do weird things. But before you reach out for the lavender tea, stress itself isn't inherently bad, okay? In fact, this is why we have a stress system. So our bodies are well equipped to handle it. What they don't like is when stress is prolonged and non-stop without a break. So think of it as balance, the thing we all strive for but rarely achieve, right? Everyone has a unique.
That's one of the most interesting things about gang stalking. So when I was gang stalked, people would always rush me to hurry up. Always, always, always. And I was like, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but when I began doing these live streams, I would speak really, really fast, and I would twist my own tongue in my own speech. That was because for many years during my gang stalking experience, people were rushing me all of the time. And now it does make me angry, but that's why I always felt like I was wondering, why am I always so tired? And I was like, well, I was pushed, to do as much as possible all of the time, which is freaking crazy.
Stress threshold, so to speak. So the
So,
level
so if you're getting gang stalked, you want to understand that if you are gang stalked at work, don't allow people to rush you. And let me tell you, people will actively go out of their way to make you feel slow, to make you feel stupid, with the intention of rushing you. You want to make sure to keep an eye open for how much work input everyone else is inputting. You want to make sure to keep an eye on everyone, because gang stalkers will do things such as pretend that they're in a hurry, pretend that there's a lot going on to make sure that you are under stress. Gang stalkers will do a lot of things to put you under, to make you feel stress.
stress our bodies can tolerate before we start running too hot. Think of stress like voltage and our nerves like pipelines. When we cross that threshold, the voltage spikes and our body sends signals to get our attention. So maybe your heart does a little dance, your breath starts to get shallow, or you feel this strange floating lightheadedness. You might notice your mind starts to race with thoughts you'd usually never entertain, and all of that is your nervous system screaming at you, hey, there's too much voltage in the system. A sensitized nervous system throws everything at you, mental and physical, to make sure that you are taking notice. And you do right, because how could you not? It feels so real and pressing, like your whole body and mind are conspiring against you. But some people, like Bill for instance, are thoroughly unimpressed by all of this. Bill will notice it, recognize it, and think, oh man, I really need to chill. So he takes some time to decompress and relax, and voila, his nervous system recalibrates, naturally bringing the voltage down. But then there is you and me. Instead of doing what Bill does, we go straight into, oh my god, what is happening to me mode. Am I having a heart attack? Why are my big toes tingling? And what is wrong with me? Instead of letting our bodies recalibrate and do their thing, we keep amplifying the stress. So the voltage cranks up even higher, and soon our bodies are throwing even more signals our way, trying to get us to survive something. But what are we trying to?
I just had to step to pause the video because my encoding overloaded. It's like this is a pretty good computer, but it's like why is this computer not computing as fast as I want it to compute, huh?
Survive our very own and totally functioning bodies. And here's another important thing. Bill relates to sensitization as stress, while anxious people refer to it as anxiety. Why? Because of the way people perceive it. Sensitization is not anxiety, no, 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 no. Anxiety is the result of fearing the sensitization and the sensations it produces. And there is a big difference. This is when anxiety disorder starts to form. It's not your body and your...
I'm glad it's not happening to you. Yeah, me too. It's crazy. And even if it was, I would be able to recognize it now and it wouldn't happen again. The only reason it happened is because I didn't know. I simply didn't know what was happening.
mind that are out of order, your appraisal and behavior are. The obsessions, the misinterpretations, the negative appraisal, and avoidance and safety behaviors. But the truth is, these sensations aren't signs that something is broken. They're simply what happens when our nervous system is running a bit too hot. A mind and body that are tired and overstretched. It's like a car on a slippery road. The instinct is to grip the wheel tightly and force control, right? But overreacting just makes things worse, doesn't it? The more you can release your grip, ease into the skid and let things settle naturally, the quicker your system recalibrates. We must get out of the way. All we get to do is support it in desensitization. So here is where meditation, exercise, breathing exercises, and your lavender tea come in. But they're all useless if you keep interpreting sensitization as dangerous. So correcting interpretations is...
This is not what I was looking for. Her sensitization is something else. Well, that's just what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Is that knowing gang stalking is 90% of it. Well, more like 60, because you have to deal with people. But look, the moment that you start having really good boundaries, the moment that you tell people, don't talk to me, the moment that you stop engaging with anyone that is not adding anything to your life, only then you will be able to stop gang stalking. But that's exactly what you need. You need to understand what gang stalking is all about. Once you understand it, only then you will be able to do something about it. But that's the thing, is that you simply have to understand gang stalking. That's the hardest thing. That's what took me so long to understand. But once I got it, the only reason that I'm like I'm good is because I understood what gang stalking is and does. So let's see. I think that's really it for this live stream. Do you guys have any questions? I think we covered everything. Sean Hayadok is saying, there's just so freaking many, dude. I meet so many professional sellers. So look, what happened is that as soon as you know someone isn't on your side, you simply just get out of their sight and then from yours. That's it. The hardest thing is when someone you work with, someone who you care for is doing things to gang stalk you. That is what really hurts, in my opinion. But that's the thing about gang stalking is that you have to understand that the people that are contributing to your gang stalking operation, they want you dead, which is exactly why you have to take drastic measures. You have to stop talking to any of them because gang stalking will kill you. Gang stalking will finish you. It will truly finish you. So you have to understand that anyone who even you have the slightest suspicion of being part of your gang stalking, you have to tell them to not speak to you. And if they do speak to you, you have to make sure to report them with the police. That's why you have to document any type of any time that you tell someone to not talk to you, you have to communicate it. You have to screenshot it and document it. And make as many police reports as you can. Because the moment that you make police reports, you leave a trail of paperwork. So calling the cops, please understand that calling the cops and showing screenshots, all of those things are going to work in your favor at the end. That's the evidence that you're going to use to prove that these people are conspiring to harass you. So just know that the cops have to keep copy of everything. Anytime that they spoke to you, it's logged. Anytime that you called, it's logged. Any documents that you send and report, all of those things are logged and put together. So please understand that there's something that you can do, but you have to report it. Reporting is gonna help you a lot. Please understand that, okay? So, all right, guys, I'm done for today's stream. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, okay? If there's any other questions about sensitization that you guys would like to learn about, please put it in the comments. All right. I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you later. Bye.